The Out of Bounds Show podcast is brought to you by Boar's Head, premium meats, cheeses, and hummus. Boar's Head, compromise elsewhere.
WRKS Pickens Jackson.
All systems go.
Live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the BankPlus Studio.
This is Out of Order.
Live in the studio. It's the Out of Bounds Show with Low Bounds. Streaming live worldwide on the Out of Bounds radio app. And on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
All set? Let's go.
The Zone.
Oh, man. Good morning on a Max Effort Monday. We hope that you're locked in, we're locked in, Blake's locked in. Everybody's ready for that Max Effort Monday. Woo! Wild weekend, Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook, and award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club, dancingrabbitgolf.com. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for making us your sports and entertainment show of choice in the great state of Mississippi. We'll do a lot of SEC football, sprinkle in some NFL and Atlanta Braves. Kudos to the Braves for making the World Series as they will take on the Houston Astros. And that series will start in Houston, and then it will move to the Braves to Atlanta for the weekend. So that's kind of cool. Actually, that's really cool, especially having the Mississippi Braves here and so on. All right, we'll get into that more a little bit later in the game. We got a top 10 team in the state of Mississippi. The Ole Miss Rebels ranked in the top 10 for the first time since 2015. And they had a big win over Blake's LSU Tigers. After going down 7-0, they decided to score 31 straight.
It ain't bragging if you can back it up.
And now every week gets bigger and bigger for Ole Miss as they head down to the Plains. That's basically a pick 'em. Depends on what book you hit, but looking here at Caesars, it's Auburn -1. That will be nuts. 100,000 plus people in the stadium, night game. And these two teams have had some unbelievable games over the years. So we'll talk about that, recap the weekend, as I didn't think Ole Miss played well early. And then they got it going, and good win over Ed Ogeron. Dead man walking. Ed Ogeron's LSU Tigers, who I guess they are what we thought they were, right? Not that good. But 6-1, top 10, playing at Auburn. Auburn, we'll see. Mississippi State goes to Vanderbilt. Woo! Man, I knew Vanderbilt was bad, but that's a terrible football team. They are trying to be historically bad in the Southeastern Conference. They really are. They're trying to make a run at being one of the worst teams in the Southeastern Conference if you go, full season. That's a bad football team. I thought that was a lethargic effort by Mississippi State, and they won 45-6. I mean, I thought the offense looked good at times, looked disinterested at times. And I thought the defense just went through the motions, and yet Vanderbilt couldn't score a touchdown.
Vanderbilt, one of 5 Power 5 conference teams without a win over another Power 5 conference team.
You're taking shots early.
Hey, they played Missouri, who's another one of those 5. So somebody's getting off that list this week.
All right.
There you go. That'll be the game of the week. We'll preview that for an hour coming up Wednesday. Stay tuned.
Everybody grab their Tito's.
Yeah.
Hold on. Vanderbilt hosts Missouri.
That's right.
Packed crowd?
As 17-point underdogs,
okay.
They host Missouri.
It's got to be weird to run into a stadium and it feel like a high school crowd when you're at the Power 5 level.
Especially the SEC Power 5.
Yeah.
It's not Washington State.
Wow. And yet Vandy can pull that off. I mean, it was basically 80% maroon.
Yeah. And only 30% full. So
Right.
you do the math there.
Right. Unbelievable. Now, Ole Miss, I mean, that was, we talked about, that was their first packed game.
And they lined it up perfectly to honor, obviously,
Eli Manning.
Yeah.
All those former players.
Yep.
Patrick Willis led the way on the Walk of Champions. I mean, they had a lot of guys guys that aren't currently playing back in town.
Yeah.
You know, retired guys or guys who were good but couldn't quite make the NFL. So you're right. To celebrate Eli Manning and, you know, retire his number. Isn't that weird in college?
There's a lot of schools that do that. State has not been one of them. Ole Miss has, obviously.
Yeah.
Retired a few numbers. I mean, it makes sense.
Are you going to advocate? I need to know, are you going to advocate for number 15 to be retired?
I said it from day one. I don't understand why Mississippi State's so hesitant to honor people who spent their, prime of their college careers trying to make your school better.
It is still early. I mean, Eli is now
I don't mean just Dak.
18 years removed.
I just meant in general,
right.
The school as a whole.
From Ole Miss. And Mangum is not, but whatever it is, 3 years or something, removed.
No, you can't do. I meant 15 is Dak Prescott, yeah, for sure, not Jake Mangum.
Okay.
Although I agree with that one too. But if you do that, you got to do 23 and 8 and whatever, all the different numbers down the line, right?
So 18 years later, Eli,
I'm with it. I'm all about it.
His number 10 is retired at Vaught Hemingway, officially at halftime, but
yeah. He had, in college, he's the Manning predecessor because
did they take it away from John Rice Plumlee?
That's a great question. I guess he's grandfathered in and then no one else wears it.
Okay.
Maybe he's done after this year. He might be done after this year, period. That's a whole different debate.
That is.
But yeah, Eli was, he deserved it. So congrats. I thought, it's got to be like a surreal experience, even as someone as good as Eli is, to walk out onto a field where you played college football and see your name in the end zone. It's not high school. I get high schools can do that. It's not, it's still a big deal, but like for a Power 5 SEC school to have your name in the end zone, that's got to be a pretty just retrospective moment, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And again, packed crowd.
Yeah.
That LSU took out for the first half, and they didn't really get back going until the second half.
Could have been a different game if you score on that 4th and goal. Boy, Orgeron was fired up when they got the 4th down snap infraction against Ole Miss. Mm-hmm. And then he runs handoff, weird bootleg, and the game was over.
Over.
Ole Miss had won it.
Over. All right, out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. 2 good wins for Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Vanderbilt's a slump buster.
The very definition of a slump buster.
Yeah.
I watched enough football this weekend. I could tell you 15 to 20 G5 teams I saw play this weekend that could take Vanderbilt's place and win more games in the SEC.
Yeah.
That's how bad Vanderbilt is.
That's hard to do.
Man, when they do this new pod system, whoever pulls Vanderbilt in their pod, talk about set up for success moving forward.
No doubt.
That's what you're praying for. Give me Vanderbilt. Please and thank you.
Ole Miss has been able to play them every year for forever.
It's a
gift. It is without a doubt the biggest gift from the SEC scheduling gods.
How bad they've been and become, man. Shout out to Derek Mason.
Yeah, that was strong. If you're going to go down, burn it down.
All the way to the ground.
And Ole Miss will face Derek Mason, defensive coordinator for Auburn this weekend.
Yeah, Saturday night.
Yeah.
He got a better job. You thought watching Mississippi State football was bad. Just watch Vanderbilt football. Good grief.
Are you still taking shots at watching Mississippi State as bad?
I'm just saying, we have a lot of people on the text line all year who get upset about Mississippi State football, and my point is...
You mean the Mississippi State football program that's 24-24 all time against the Kentucky Wildcats?
Put it in perspective. You could be Vanderbilt.
Woo! Or South Carolina that won 21-20 over Vandy. So Mississippi State traveled to Vandy and won 45-6. And I thought, again, played lethargic football. It took South Carolina a game-winning drive at the end of the game, right, to win 21-20. Unbelievable. Man, we got a lot to cover today. Tom Luganbill will join us on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line at 8:30 to recap Ole Miss and the Southeastern Conference. Big board next.
The Out of Bounds Show podcast is powered by Breezy Oaks Ranch. For Mississippi-raised premium Wagyu beef and heritage pork shipped straight to your door, visit breezyoaksranch.com.
What's on the big board?
Oh, man. Good morning. Welcome in. The big board is powered by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Visit MississippiSportsMedicine.com for any orthopedic hiccup. New Surgery Center Clinic, Lakeland Drive, Flowood, the one in Fortification or on Fortification in Belhaven, has been there for over 30 years. Outstanding team, any age, any sport, any injury. They've got you covered. MississippiSportsMedicine.com. Blake Mania with me. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. It's a Max Effort Monday powered by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Congratulations to the Ole Miss Rebels and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Winning's hard. Winning's fun. And you did what you had to do over the weekend. And we march on to two big games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mississippi State has their biggest game of the year hosting Kentucky. I don't know how many times I've said that on the show the last...
Yeehaw.
I don't even know how many falls, 18 maybe. And Ole Miss plays what I think is the game of the week, trumping the cocktail party. Florida and Georgia will play in Jacksonville, but I think it's Ole Miss at Auburn. I think it's Ole Miss at Auburn. Basically a pick'em. Caesars has it right now at Auburn -1. Whatever you want to do with that. I'd run from it. But if you want to go ahead and lock in.
Yeah. You
get
take
after
Ole Miss money line. Get those odds up.
Well, that's true.
If you think Ole Miss is winning at a pick'em, you don't take the -1 or the +1.
That's true.
Just take the money line.
That's true. Money line that bad boy. That's a good point, Blake.
Dude, Rebels are on a 5-game losing streak to Auburn.
Yeah.
They snapped.
Are they?
They snapped a 5-game losing streak to LSU just a week ago.
Wow. I did not realize that Ole Miss is on a 5-game losing streak to Auburn. I did realize what you just said, which is still hard to believe.
2015, Gus Malzahn and Hugh Freeze. That was the last Ole Miss victory. 27-19.
Was it really?
Well, remember 2016, I believe, was 2016. No, that's the year before was the injury, I guess, to Treadwell. Was 2014, right?
2014 was Treadwell going into the end zone.
Yep.
And he got tackled from behind and rolled up on.
So they
going into, I think, the south end zone where Eli Manning's number is now retired.
They rebounded one in 2015 and then have lost the last 5 straight. So can they snap a second straight 5-game losing streak? Be interesting to see.
Okay. All right. So 5 games. Ole Miss at Auburn, 5 games, and we've talked about, and this is interesting too, how Kentucky has flipped the Mississippi State Kentucky series. Dan won. Blake, did you tell me 8 in a row?
7 in a row and 8 of 9.
8 of 9. Dan won 7 in a row and 8 of 9.
The 7 in a row was the most in a row for Mississippi State in that series.
And I think you told me both Dan and Cheryl won 7 against Kentucky.
Yeah, they either combined for 15 or 16, something like that. 15 14? Of the 24 wins, yeah.
Oh, Dan had 8.
Yeah.
And maybe Jackie had 7.
I think that's correct. So it's like 15
so
of
maybe
the 24.
15 wins.
Yeah.
And the series is tied 24-24.
Yeah.
What would it look like if you didn't have 2 good coaches, in Jackie Sherrill and Dan Mullen kind of flipped the script, Blake, on that series, 24-24 in Starkville, night game.
Yep. Both games.
Biggest game this year.
Both games at 6 o'clock. So another pairing where you're going to have the 2 TV. That's been the last 3 weeks. You had to have 2 TVs to watch both teams, but
yeah,
should be a good one. Should be both. Both crowds should be pretty good. I think State should be up for the Kentucky game, and obviously Auburn will be more than excited to host Ole Miss.
Well, let's throw out the agup.com. I want your reaction to the weekend. All right? Here we go. Let's serve it up to you. Like a big plate of spaghetti from Bravo Italian Restaurant and Bar. That sounds delicious a little bit later in the day. The agup.com Mississippi Ag John Deere tractor text line today is 601-885-3776. Twitter handle @BoBounds. And your Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line is 601-707-3750. 707-3750. That's the Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line. All right. Twitter handle at BowBounds. And again, the agup.com Mississippi Ag text line is 601-885-3776. We'll have Tom Luganbill at 8:30. Tom Luganbill at 8:30 on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale. Bell's Two-Hearted Ale. Check out that delicious beer. Ranked number 1 4 years in a row. Guest line. And, Blake, it was a wild day in the NFL.
Oh, super wild.
Yeah. So you had Ole Miss and their running game look great.
Yep.
You had Mississippi State, and there was a little herky-jerky there, but all in all, Will and the receivers had some really nice plays.
Yeah. Defense played pretty well. I mean, that offense is about as bad as it gets.
Jerrion Ely had a highlight reel run, and then Mekhi Polk for Mississippi State had a great touchdown pass in the back of the end zone. So
right.
We had some players with some very, very nice performances. Snoop Connor continues to just, I mean, he wasn't even in the top 25 prospects in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah.
He is a big-time player. May find himself an NFL career, 6-7 years, hang around, get paid, cool things happen.
It's not a bad
Leave
deal.
with $20 million.
That's not a bad deal.
It could happen. It really could. And how much better is the Ole Miss defense? Well, they once LSU scored, they shut them down for what felt like 2.5 hours, and then LSU got some garbage points later, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was that. It goes. I go back to the momentum swing of that fourth down play. You had 1st and goal at the 4-yard line, and you didn't score, and that was a huge booster shot for Ole Miss.
Yeah,
huge booster shot.
Well, get a pick on the goal line. The momentum, the crowd had been taken out of the game. Everybody was excited with LSU, and you win and you go in the top 10 and all that. And LSU's about to go up
14
2
nothing.
scores,
Yeah.
maybe 14, and they throw a pick on the goal line.
Yep.
So for Mississippi State, there wasn't really that moment because the game.
To me, the deciding factor was you threw an interception and they threw it right back.
Well,
and you settled down.
That was Vandy being nice.
Correct. You needed to not Memphis this game.
Right.
I mean, you don't let bad teams stick around. So even though Mississippi State was somewhat lethargic, you won 45-6. That's what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a game where maybe if Leach is in year 4, you win 60-12, right? Like you'd like to be a little bit more efficient, but at the end of the day, 45 points for this Mississippi State offense is pretty dang good.
Low scoring this weekend in Starkville
Kentucky ground and pound
against Mississippi State's
air and pound.
Okay offense. At times you think it looks good, and then at times you're wondering what. Now, granted, there's been some games where they moved it up and down the field in the 20s and didn't score.
Correct. You were 4 for 4 at one point in the red zone, or 5 for 5 at one point in the red zone with
That's
touchdowns.
Not bad.
Yeah.
So Matt Corral had a good day. We're used to him just doing insane stuff. They relied on the running game.
I think that's important.
No doubt.
It's to me what I learned
just
about
cut his carries all the way down.
What I thought I took out of this Ole Miss game was, okay, the defense is not, they're bad, but they're not trash. They were able to make stops. Jerrion Ely being healthy is very important for Ole Miss, and Matt Corral not having to do everything.
Yeah.
Those were kind of my key tenets of the Ole Miss game.
Yes, the one big takeaway was let's keep Matt as healthy as we can.
And he still took a couple shots.
He did.
But not near what he had to do against Tennessee.
Right. That is a monster game on the Plains, man. Huge.
From now on, every game will be the biggest game for Ole Miss since 2015.
Right.
Because you have to win every one of them to do what you want to do.
That's right. You're in the top 10, but you want Bama to lose. You want to stay clean, and you want to end up in, Blake, Atlanta Braves territory in December and play in Atlanta against Georgia. Oh, man, we're live in the BankPlus Studio. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and go local and go with the home team. Go with your Farm Bureau Insurance agent in your area. Save you money. Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-707-3750. We're live in the BankPlus Studio. SEC Insider hit next. The Out of Bounds Show podcast is presented by Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Your golf game starts with Edwin Watts Golf Shop.
Come on.
Everyone ready?
This is the SEC Insider Hit. Presented by your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Go local. Go with a home team.
Right. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. I'm going to give you my SEC rankings here coming up in just a second. I don't know if it'll surprise any. Well, it will somebody. Somebody wacky and weird. It'll surprise. But, yeah, we'll drop our rankings here in just a second. Want to say good morning. Welcome in. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. This is 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We are the Out of Bounds Show. This is the SEC Insider Hit brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Congratulations to Ole Miss and Mississippi State for, every win is good. Every win is good. Ole Miss takes down LSU at home, and Mississippi State travels on the road to that very tough environment in Nashville and beats the Vanderbilt Commodores. So now we turn the page. Just two monster games this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk about them and see what we like and don't like and look at the matchups, so to speak, strength and weaknesses of the four teams. Ole Miss will go on the road to Auburn, night game, and Mississippi State will host Kentucky, which will also be a night game in Starkville. Ole Miss ranked in the top 10 for the first time since 2015. That's Chad Kelly and the Sugar Bowl team that beat Oklahoma State in New Orleans. So now in the top 10, 6-1. Blake, don't control their own destiny. They need Bama to lose.
Yes.
Bama has a week off. Then they play LSU. Then they play New Mexico State, then Arkansas, and your best opportunity is at Auburn for Bama to lose. But you have to stay clean and beat Auburn and A&M and Mississippi State down the stretch. Two of the three are on the road. At Auburn, you host the Aggies, and then you go to Starkville Thanksgiving night for the battle for the Golden Egg. I thought Matt Corral played good. Thought Will Rogers played good. Running game for Ole Miss was phenomenal. And Mississippi State had a couple of guys make some plays in the passing game. I don't know if we had a wicked performance. I guess we did on the ground for Ole Miss. And Mekhi Polk for Mississippi State, Jerrion Ely for Ole Miss.
Maybe
Snoop was lights out.
Give it to the Ole Miss defense for only giving up the 7 points in.
Well, that's true. I should do that.
True gameplay, right?
That's true.
Gave up garbage time, but when it could have been bad, they were able to stymie the bleeding, and then your offense took over.
Turn that game around.
Seriously. If you go down 14, I still think Ole Miss probably wins.
Ely.
But if you go down 14-0, the dynamic of that game certainly changes.
Yeah. Corral went from 30 carries to 12 carries, Blake.
Which is still maybe more than you'd like, but you'll deal with it.
12 carries, 24 yards. But Corral was efficient through the air, and he caught a pass for 19 yards.
That was
Not
a nice
bad.
little tricky play.
I said this. I mean, the guy sets up the concession stands hours before the game and then does everything else on the field. Snoop was 14 carries for 117. Corral was 18 of 23 for 185. They scored most of their touchdowns on the ground. Ely got one, Parrish got one, Corral got one.
It is interesting that this is now back-to-back weeks where you have not seen a lot of vertical passing game. from a team that has really thrived on vertical passing.
You chalk that up as Sanders not playing? And Minga?
I chalk it up to that and defenses deciding how they want to allow you to play.
After Arkansas allowed those 3 big plays, people were like, all right.
Drive 15 plays down the field. We'll take that. We'd rather see that.
And I think that's what's happening now. Ole Miss is having to earn some points now. And you felt like early it was just boom, 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 we scored.
I mean, 60-yard plays in 7 seconds will break your back. I'd rather, I guess coordinators are saying I'd rather you drive. We'll give you the 6 yards and the 10 yards.
And is that playing into the Ole Miss defense? Is that playing into their favor?
1,000%.
A lot of the guys who run analytics like Bartu say, man, when you score so fast, your defense is right back on the field. Their defense is able to sit for much bigger chunks of time.
There's no doubt.
And
There's
get those
no
legs
doubt.
back going and get a little more water in you and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
the numbers show Durkin's defense doesn't thrive over,
which
I think
most
it's like,
people don't.
Yeah, 80 plays or something like that. So, you want to stay underneath that, and the way you do that is possess the ball, for sure.
Yeah. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. Want to welcome you in, say good morning. I'll go ahead and go through my rankings real quick. All right? So we're live in the BankPlus Studio. BankPlus, it's more than a name, it's a promise. Let me set up the show for you. Tom Luganbill will join us at 8:30 on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. And so Luganbill will start with Ole Miss, kind of roll through the league, hit on Ole Miss and Auburn, hit on Kentucky and Mississippi State. That'll be a great 24-minute segment, no breaks. Then we'll have the BankPlus Player of the Week. Friday Night Lights, BankPlus High School Player of the Week at 9:15. So we're looking forward to that. And here's what I have as far as rankings in the SEC. All right, Georgia 1. Does that throw anybody off? Georgia is the number 1 team in the Southeastern Conference, and they are favored by 14.5 against Florida on a neutral field this weekend.
Woof.
I've got Bama 2. Some of y'all are going to go, well, Bo, A&M beat Bama. Well, they also lost to Mississippi State and Arkansas. That's not how I do the rankings. So I got Georgia 1, Bama 2, and then I have Ole Miss and Texas A&M tied for 3rd. And then I have Auburn and Kentucky. Then it's a bunch of meh. Florida, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Arkansas. Kind of all bunched together. And then you've got some bad teams after that we're not going to spend any time on. So let me go over that one more time. I got Georgia 1, Bama 2, A&M Ole Miss tied for 3rd, and then Auburn, Kentucky. It's a weird year in the league. We don't have much to any star power at the quarterback position. We're not even talking about a bunch of monster edge rushers, are we? I mean, it's an interesting year. Are we going crazy on like top 5, top 10 picks at the wide receiver position? No. I mean, it is a transition. We fired so many coaches in the league over the last 3, 6, 7 years. From either chasing Saban or maybe a little bit of scandal, hiccup, NCAA-ish stuff. And one coach moved in the league in Dan Mullen. But we fired so many coaches that we're looking here and going, the QB play is not good or not special. You got Matt Corral, and then you're like, what? I don't know necessarily that we're talking about like elite edge rushers left and right and elite wide receivers left and right.
Outside of Will Anderson, I mean, you
and
feel
he's
like
a sophomore.
Yeah. Georgia's got some good interior defense. As a whole, their D-line is good, but there's not that amazing, Chris Jones, Kim Dichie, where you're like, oh my gosh, that guy stands out, right?
Right. And I don't know what A&M is yet. I understand they're coming off the good win and they just played 2 crappy teams.
What a turn! You get Bama, and then you get to relax against Missouri and South Carolina.
That's a gift from the scheduling gods, my man.
Yeah, boy, if you don't what are we talking about if they don't lose to Arkansas or State? Right, one of them. If you had only lost one of those games.
Well, if they run this, if A&M runs this, which will be extremely difficult to do, they host Auburn and go to Ole Miss. Then they got Prairie View and an LSU team that will have quit or already has by then. But those two games will be difficult for A&M. If they run it, there will be a lot of what might have been. Like,
because I myself included, had said, "Ugh, this team looks bad after 2 straight losses." It seems like a different team, but I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah, me neither. So I got Georgia 1, Bama 2, Ole Miss and A&M, who are playing well. You know, we'll see what they can do down the stretch to.
They face each other.
To make, absolutely.
That'll
in
write
Oxford,
itself
that'll
out.
Be huge game. Auburn and then Kentucky. So that's my. And then I just threw Florida, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Arkansas in together.
It's the nondescript.
There's a lot of mediocrity, pretty good, sometimes look bad, kind of in that range.
But if Florida played
average
like
pedestrian sometimes.
If Florida played like the last 3 quarters of the Alabama game all year, they'd be up there. But they haven't. And that's the story of everybody, right?
Yeah.
You can find pockets of play where you go, wow, that team looks really good. But then there's lots of other times where you say, that team does not look very good.
I think it's a couple of things. Quarterback play in the league, and we fired so many coaches.
Does that stop when Saban's gone?
That's a good question.
Or are we already in the mode of you get 3 years, maybe 4, and then everything else is...
I think the money is so crazy now, Blake, but that it is going to be extremely difficult in this league to stop that cycle. And so fan bases have all lost their minds, and I think it'll be tough.
There's no doubt they've lost their minds. I mean, that's... Yeah.
But what are you going to do at South Carolina? I mean, Beamer's not going to work. What are you going to do at Missouri? People don't think Drinkwitz is going to work. There are people listening who don't think Leach is going to work, at Mississippi State. And there are people who think, Lane's got this thing totally figured out. I think Lane, while a good coach, and Leach a good coach, I think Lane's riding a generational first round, top 5, top 10 talent. That's in a year where there's a lot of not good in the league, and Ole Miss, and again, window of opportunities, Ole Miss is taking advantage. Now, Mississippi State has a winnable game this weekend. They could turn this thing into 5-3.
Boy.
Now, let me describe Kentucky real quick before I may get into Auburn. Kentucky is like a pretty good Jackie Sherrill team. Pretty good to good Jackie Sherrill team. Line of scrimmage, pound the rock, play physical, burn the clock, keep it away from you. Tough coach, not flashy, Blake. We're into flash now, kind of the way that Ole Miss plays now. Oklahoma's played, Clemson at times, Bama at times. Not the Big Ten outside of Ohio State. I watched Michigan and Northwestern Michigan just running an archaic offense. And the fact that Penn State could not score in whatever it was, 9 overtimes against an Illinois team that's kind of like Vandy is extremely difficult for me to believe or wrap my brain around. Kentucky's like a Jackie Sherrill team, ground and pound, play tough defense, no margin for, can't get vertical with the football, can't throw the foot. Well, this transfer's better than they have been from Penn State. But Blake, and Kentucky hasn't really faced a team that is driven through the passing game. Because of the way the East is built, Georgia is a ground and pound team because they don't have to be anything else. They're very ball control. We're going to do what we want. Our defense is ferocious. Florida couldn't throw the ball against Kentucky. And then the rest of the East teams aren't any good.
LSU didn't have a good offense against Kentucky. Yeah. It's very bad.
It was awful. They went up there and totally they melted in the first quarter against Kentucky and Lexington. Yep. So Kentucky has not been, that secondary has not been challenged where they're going to see possibly 50, 55 passing attempts against them this weekend. So even though Kentucky's got the momentum, and by the way, for our listeners, Kentucky and Auburn coming off week offs or bye weeks, Kentucky has the momentum as far as the season going into this game. but they have yet to face an offense that's going to throw it 95% of the time.
Yeah.
Some of you may say it's a dink and dunk offense. Doesn't matter. If you can get 5 to 7 yards a throw, stretch people out. I mean, the whole thing on the air raid, and I know a lot of you read Mike Leach's book, is to make people run sideline to sideline forever and then try to find a play in the fourth quarter. I mean, there have been other coaches use just other different ways to do that, right, in football. And Leach's and Mississippi State's time of possession is much better than you think it would be.
Yes, they're best in the SEC in time of possession.
Best. All right, so, Kentucky's got 2 stout running backs, and they want to ground and pound Jackie Sherrill style. Now, how has Auburn been built for my whole life for the most part?
Pretty much
They've
the
been
same.
built like a Jackie Sherrill. Ole Miss traveling to Auburn. I grew up, one of the first players I remember is Bo Jackson. Pat Dye was unbelievable in the 80s. They always had running backs and fullbacks, and they played ferocious defense for years. And they have won and won and won. So Ole Miss is walking into another. I know Bo Nix is capable, Blake. He's not great and he's not terrible.
Yeah.
He's pretty good, but he can hurt you with a couple of throws down the field.
That scramble ability.
And he is
there.
mobile.
Yeah.
So everybody has to prepare for that against Ole Miss. Now, he's not Matt Corral mobile, but Bo Nix can move around, and he can hurt you and extend plays. So it'll be interesting. I don't know if the Ole Miss, I'm trying to think. The last guy that was mobile and could extend plays that they played was KJ Jefferson. And he had a big day against Ole Miss. Obviously, different players, I understand, stylistically and size-wise. But Bo Nix will run around. Y'all all remember the LSU game. He was running around just playing, Brett Favre side-yard football and completing some amazing passes. So it is interesting that State and Ole Miss kind of play a Jackie Sherrill-built teams this weekend.
Yeah, we believe these two teams have good defenses. Both teams allow less than 20 points per game defensively, which is top 30 in the country. Auburn is 15th in the country in yards per play allowed. Kentucky's 22nd. And Kentucky is 17th in the country in air yards per play allowed. Now, again, Kentucky's played South Carolina, Missouri, LSU, Georgia, teams that do not throw. Georgia won with 11 pass attempts. So,
11? Mississippi State does that in one quarter.
Yeah, Dan Mullen did that in 2010 one time. You know what I mean? There is no doubt Kentucky will be challenged for the first time this season on a, passing game offense. But they have been good defensively through 6 games.
Yeah.
So, and Auburn has been right there with them.
They're nasty. They are.
20 points a game
Auburn
is good.
Auburn's going to be physical. Kentucky's going to be physical. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, when you only allow 20 points a game halfway through the season, at that point, that's enough of a measuring, right? Even if you've had some easy games in there, that's still a lot of games.
Those two teams are a little bit of a throwback right now.
No doubt, which is not surprising for Mark Stoops. Maybe Auburn should be more talented than to be that way, but it is a new coaching staff. It is a lot of turnovers. So,
transition, baby.
Yeah, you got to rely on what you got.
For our listeners, a lot of you don't keep up with this. Brian Harson is the new coach at Auburn. Gus Malzahn now at Central Florida. I will say this. As bad of a head coach as Derek Mason was at Vanderbilt, Mason is known as a really good defensive coordinator. So Kiffin and Levy and Matt Corral will prepare this week for Derek Mason and vice versa. So Derek is an excellent Derek Mason, super play caller and a good defensive coordinator. Now, he'll have his hands full, and we'll monitor what's happening with Sanders and Mingo too, right? As far as expecting, when they could come back down the stretch, so to speak. The Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. We'll have Tom Luganbill at 8:30 as we'll talk Ole Miss and Hail State and some other teams with Lugs Mania. Tom will join us on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. Also want to let you know that the SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. That number for our show, the call-in line, 601-707-3750. 707-3750. We also have Georgia and Florida this weekend. Doesn't have quite as much sizzle with the way Florida has played as of late, which makes a lot of you happy. But George, yeah, I know your animosity towards Dan Mullen. That game is a 14.5-point spread between Georgia and Florida. And look, Ole Miss and Auburn and Mississippi State, Kentucky, Blake, they're basically pick'ems, right? I mean, when you got 1 point.
Yeah.
So,
especially being that the home Mississippi State's line is interesting. They started favored -2. They are now opposite, now +1. So that tells you that early money hammering Kentucky to move that thing 3 points,
like you said.
Ole Miss in their last 5 games against Derek Mason when he was the head coach of Vanderbilt. So he did not coach Vanderbilt last season when Ole Miss played them. He had already been fired at that point. But in their last 5 games against the Derek Mason defense at Vanderbilt, Ole Miss just scoring 31 points per game, which sounds like a lot. But then when you think about them, it's playing Vanderbilt. That's not as big a number as you might have expected.
Interesting.
Derek Mason's got, he's schematically a good DC, and now he's got way more talent than he had in Nashville.
You think? You think Auburn's got a little bit more dudes?
Just
a few more dudes on the defensive side of the football?
Speaking of dudes, Clemson, starting quarterback benched. It's the second major starting quarterback bench now. Oklahoma benches Spencer Rattler. Clemson benches DJ Uiagalelei.
You know, DJ, that boy, they're missing. Jeff Scott leaving a couple years ago. He was their co-offensive coordinator for years. He took the South Florida job. Maybe Trevor Lawrence was able to mask that, and then as soon as he leaves, they bench their quarterback. And they lost to the mighty Pitt Panthers, who recognized Jackie Sherrill over the weekend.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Jackie was not there long, but he won big with Dan Marino with the Pitt Panthers. Blake, okay, that's a good point. So Oklahoma struggled against Kansas. Clemson took another loss. What do we think about Clemson? We talk about how hard it is to break into the blue blood neighborhood and get you a house on the beach and stay and have staying power. And we really thought Clemson would have staying power. And yet, I wonder if they'll be able to flip this because they have become the cool program the last 6 or 7 years. And Dabo was the cool young coach, kind of hip, loved talking to the media, almost fed off of it.
They were like the good guy version of Alabama.
Yeah, he wasn't grumpy in his press conferences like Coach Saban and other coaches.
Or like somebody people hated like Urban at Ohio State.
That's true.
With that. So it's like
Urban's
Clemson was the
really
good guy.
Dry.
Yeah, Clemson was like the good guy you could cheer for, right?
Yeah. You know, if they don't, we're getting ahead of ourselves. What if I had to bet, I say Clemson gets their act together and is back and going next year. But that would be weird if they somewhat fell off for a couple years, Blake, and landed in that kind of meh territory where nobody really cares.
Yeah, you don't want that. You went to 4 title games in 5 seasons. Not just playoffs. 4 title games in 5 seasons did Clemson from 2015 to 2019. You gotta find the magic back, I guess, so to speak. You don't want to be you don't have to play for the title, but you need to be back in the playoffs, right? Because I think Oklahoma's in that same boat with less success. Clemson made it and won for a period of years,